It is mid-September and this is my garden. What you can see happening around here. It's been a little bit of a hit or miss year because it is every single year when you're gardening in the northern prairies. I'll show you like a whole bunch of stuff up close and personal, but yeah, basically like I have a big patch of land that I use at my parents' place. So I know a lot of people do community gardens or backyard gardening. I don't have to do that. I can just drive out, visit my parents, and I don't know, kind of casually forget about the land and then garden it every once in a while. It's kind of a fun thing to do. It's nice when you do a bunch of very cerebral type work, which is teaching and being really highly engaged and doing a lot of like knowledge work, as they say, and then just like putting my hands in the dirt. And it's really at times not that fun. So like weeding, not everyone's idea of a good time, but it is like it's a totally different mode of operating and of experiencing the world, and I always feel refreshed afterwards. So it is a nice habit, even though sometimes it's hard. At this time of year, it's really rewarding because everything's bursting and abundant and ebullient, as they say. I don't think they say that. So I got like a tomato jungle that's not been our best shining star this year, but that's okay. I've got some peppers, eggplants. We've long since picked most of the peas and beans, so those are pretty much done. Those are mid-season crops. But the cool season crops are coming. They really like getting a little bit cold. And that's the carrots and the beets and the Swiss chard. I got like a single Swiss chard crop, which is just about as big as my kid. A bunch of potatoes in the back, and then in another spot, which I'll show you, I have like a big pumpkin patch pretty much, which is going pretty well. So I'll take you on a little tour to, you know, get up close and personal with where my garden's at this year. I have an Algonquin squash looking really, really nice and just like hand for scale. This thing is really giant, so it's the first time I've successfully grown a really big squash. And in fact, you can see my entire squash patch. Say that 5 times fast. And there's some others kind of scattered through, little pumpkins intermittently. And some funny looking ones that are coming along. This is a blue Hubbard. I have a few of these as well because they're supposed to be pretty resilient. Not all of my squash plants have done really well. I think a lot of them have lots of flowers, but not a whole lot of actual squash blossoms. Like this guy is pretty little, but I have a really nice sized blue Hubbard going over here.
You're hanging on? We're just going to check the water.
And then we're going to see if I can run in the pen by myself.
And hand for scale. Some zucchini still coming in on the zucchini plat. I'm growing a costata romanesca type zucchinis. Ooh, I got another really nice blue Hubbard coming in there. Some itty bitty little pumpkins. You can see the orange in the back there. These guys are pretty cute. I don't know really what they're gonna amount to. Now, it's really late in the season for these, but I do have some very, very young butternut squash starting, and I don't think they're going to get very far before the end of the year. Got a nice little acorn squash nestled in here. That little guy. There you go. So there are some. Now, for the size and scale of my squash operation here, I really have rather disappointing yields. Now I do have some big ones, and this is a better squash production than I've ever had, but looking at the sheer size of this and the, you know, aside from a few big squash, there's really not too much happening over here. Kind of getting into it, you can see just basically the size and scale of this garden, which, you know, every garden has its ups and downs, every season has its ups and downs, so there are things that worked really well this year and things that didn't. This over here is the kind of epic tomato jungle, which happens every year. I always plant way too many tomatoes. The cucumbers are starting to, you know, hit their last legs, but other plants are doing quite well. We have, ooh, that's a loud cricket. We got some carrots and beets happening over here, which are really quite happy. And of course, a whole bunch of potatoes. Now, I've had a lot of fun with this Swiss chard plant. This guy, I always have, this happened to me last year too. It's a weird little thing where one Swiss chard plant, I plant so many, and then one survives and ends up growing so big and ends up feeding me all fall long, more or less. I do have some radishes that were all eaten up, but weirdly they're coming back now. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna let this guy go a little longer, and then I'll start picking the young leaves. But I don't wanna wreck this plant. Now, the bugs completely destroyed my kale at some point in the summer because we get these, basically these like white maggots and flies that just feast on cruciferous veggies. But there are some leaves, and I see bugs on them, but there are some leaves that seem to be coming back to life, which is interesting to see. Nice green leaf lettuce to finish off the season, because now is a really good time to be planting lettuce when it starts getting a little cooler. I do have some tiny guys coming up from the ground, but I don't know, like lettuce does grow pretty well at this time of year, but I don't know if it's going to quite come up before it's too late. We'll see. We'll see. Plenty of beets. As you can see, they're luscious and lovely, and they're basically exploding out of the ground. I don't know if you can see this action here, but they're basically popping right out. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy. He's like ejecting himself from the earth. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of fluffy, abundant carrots. Some of these are getting really quite sizable. Like you can kind of see the top orange part of this, if I can get the... You can tell I haven't been to my garden in a while when you get a cucumber that's this big. Oh Lord, that is not going to taste good at this point in the season, but c'est la vie. Finally, at the end of the season, I have some eggplants coming along. I really want there to be more eggplants before we get a freeze. I get these like cute little baby guys coming. My eggplant production was really quite terrible this year, though, and I'm not entirely sure why. I've only really had one good year of eggplant, so again, not really sure the rhyme or reason of it aside from really hot weather. Got some peppers coming in though. These guys are pretty fun. They're like quite... And all these lovely, lovely black Hungarian peppers, which are basically just like a black jalapeno. They're so pretty and purple, and they've got such beautiful little flowers. Look at that. Look how lovely that is. And you thaw them, you put them in your recipe, and they're great. Some really... Tomatoes rotting. It looks like they just either ejected themselves or someone else ejected them, said they're not going to deal with them. I've had to really struggle with blossom rot this year, which is when the bottom end of the tomato just starts rotting. Like it's not a fully formed circle. It's like it's cut in half on the vine. It's just a weird little affliction that my tomatoes have gotten themselves into. You can kind of see. This is the sad remnant of like a half tomato. There are so many bugs out here right now. So I have a really, really, really big cucumber that probably doesn't taste good. So yeah, definitely gotta deal with some cucumber happening over here. I got some English cucumbers happening, but I keep finding cucumbers. How many bugs are on me right now? That's the real question. That's the question that I want to not know. And that's my garden. I'm hoping that it'll stay kicking for another couple weeks. In September, where I live, it's always kind of dicey. Your first frost can come at the beginning of September, the end of September, but it usually comes sometime in September. So a lot of really sensitive crops like cucumbers and tomatoes are just gonna die on that first freeze. So we cover them. We try to make it last as long as possible. There's a plane in the sky making a lot of noise. Maybe you can see the moon. The moon looks really beautiful as well. So yeah, I'm hoping I get a little bit more out of the harvest, and that by mid-October, probably everything will be out of the ground. But this is where it's at right now, full abundance mode, and I'm enjoying grocery shopping here every week. There are so many bugs. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.